I'm Dr. Laura Fryan. I have my PhD in Human Development and Family Studies with a specialization in couple and family therapy. And I'm so excited to have you here today because we are going to be talking about how we can help our children process the scary events that happen in their daily lives, hopefully not too daily, but and how we can help them process their daily lives, make sense of them, make meaning out of the things that happen to them, and heal from anything that's scary. So as more and more research comes out on the impact of childhood trauma or traumatic events, we are getting a clearer and clearer picture about how those events influence child development when they're young children and our lives as older adults. So there's a lot of research out there on trauma, but we're not talking just about trauma today. We're talking about some of the daily stressful events that kids can experience, things like being teased on the playground or seeing someone else get hurt, even if they didn't experience it themselves. So I would love to hear from you if your kids have experienced things that might be scary or have stressed them out, or that you feel like they're having difficulty processing. Please share them here if you have, if you feel comfortable and safe doing so. And I can talk a little bit about my own experiences. So one of the things that I just wanted to mention, I'm glancing at my notes to make sure I don't forget anything, is that so we often think about trauma in terms of explicit memories, the things that our kids can actually remember and talk about and ask questions about. But it's important to remember that for very young children and even for adults, sometimes we have something called implicit memories. And so these are things that memories that are kind of stored in our brains and in our bodies that we can't verbalize, and we don't have a specific ability to recall them, but that our brains and bodies still remember. And those implicit memories can also cause some difficulty and struggle in our lives. They influence how our stress response system is built, and they influence our abilities to make connection as we grow. So helping children with their explicit memories, the things that they can talk about and remember, is important. But it's also important to think about things that maybe have happened to your child before they were verbal or before they were able to really start encoding explicit memories. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my older daughter and some of the experiences that we've had using some of the techniques that I'm going to talk about today. So I had a traumatic birth with my first daughter, and as a result of the birth, we ended up being separated for 24 hours. Now, of course, she doesn't remember that, but that type of trauma, being separated like that as a brand new baby, it lives and gets stored in your body. And so that's something that we've worked very hard to process and make explicit memories around it. So she's going to carry that memory within her, but we're making sense of it together, creating shared meaning out of what happened together by processing it. And we process it in several ways using the techniques that I'm talking about today. We're going to talk about using storytelling, art, play with your child, both child-led play and adult-led play, and some grounding techniques. So my older daughter, she's had a lot happen to her in her life. When she was 5, she was run over by a bicyclist in front of me and my mom. It was one of those awful moments where, a kid, she was like a squirrel running in front of a car. She was totally safe, and then she just got confused and she thought she wasn't where she was supposed to be, and she just ran right out in front of a bicyclist who was coming really fast down a hill. It was awful. And it's still a little bit of a blur for me. I've had my own trauma around it too, watching your kid get really hurt. She was really lucky. She only broke her leg. It could have been much worse. She didn't have any internal trauma or anything. And we were able to get her to a wonderful top-notch children's hospital. And physically, she's great. But in the weeks and months after the accident, it was clear that she was not doing so well in processing it. She really didn't want to talk about it. She would sometimes have little flashes of it come into her mind. That's how she thought about it. And with my background trauma, I knew that those are intrusive memories or intrusive thoughts around it. and she was having the beginning of some post-traumatic stress. So post-traumatic stress is kind of defined by the length of time after an event. And so she definitely had some acute stress right afterwards. And then as the months passed, she was still pretty stressed out about it. And so when these scary things happen to our kids, the memories of it can be really scary too, and even when scary things happen to us. And so our natural kind of response is to push those memories or thoughts about it away. But our brains are super wise, and they know that in order for us to process something and release it and fully heal from it, that we have to remember it. We have to think about it. We have to almost relive it from time to time. And so the reason something like PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder develops is because we are often override our bodies and our brain's natural way of healing. We suppress memories, we push thinking about it to the side, we avoid going places or doing things that would remind us of it, all in an attempt to kind of push the memory that's scary and triggering for us away. And our brain fights through that with nightmares, with intrusive thoughts and memories about it. And all of those things, we can see our brain as giving us the opportunity to heal from this trauma. And PTSD develops when we are not actively pursuing healing. We're doing the best that we can, and we're trying to make it through and trying, and it's certainly, this most of the time isn't something that we're doing actively, but rather instinctually. But the way that you heal from trauma is by telling the story of it over and over again, experiencing the emotions of it in small doses in a feasible, doable way that does kind of send you into fight or flight. And you have to do that processing in order to heal from something like that is hard. And I mean, and we're not even talking, I'm talking about bigger traumas right now, like with what my daughter has experienced, but even the small traumas of having a fire drill that nobody told you about or that you don't remember hearing about and thinking that your school is on fire when really it wasn't. Even that small little trauma that lots of kids experience every day in this country when they are in a mainstream school, that might need processing and meaning making for kids. And kids do this in a number of different ways. So we can help our kids do this in a few different ways. The first one that I want to share with you today is through storytelling. Storytelling is a powerful tool to have in your parenting toolbox. There's lots of different ways you can use storytelling to create connection with your kids, to develop a sense of family and community within your family, between you and your kids and your partner if you're parenting with one. Storytelling is this great, wonderful tool. And one of my friends and colleagues, Jen Lumenlan, who hosts the Your Parenting Mojo podcast, has a great episode on family storytelling. So I'll grab the link to that after we're done here and I'll put it in the comments. But that podcast episode is wonderful. I highly recommend it. But specifically in using storytelling to help our kids process events like this, we're simply retelling the story. And we can teach our kids how to use kind of the video player in their mind. This is a term that Dan Siegel talks about a lot in The Whole Brain Child. We can help children feel like they have more control over their memories if they are coming in and presenting them with the opportunity to heal a traumatic or stressful event. Instead of pushing them away, we can help children feel more in control of those memories by helping them practice the story. For parts that are too intense or scary, we can kind of help them gloss over it at first and get more into the details that were scary as the children get more and more emotional distance from what happened. But telling the story, kind of a brief elevator version at first, the 2 minutes, this happened, then this happened, I was here, I did this, this is how we made sure you were safe. and kind of closing. And then at the end of it, always coming to a resolution, always talking about how you were going to work to keep them safe, and kind of ending in this place of held safety. So when you are storytelling, you want to make sure that you're including any feelings that they might have, that they've told you about, or that you might be guessing that they had. You want to always have it lead to a sense of safety and feeling grounded and together, and include a resolution and a way forward. Now, it's super important that if you were a part of this trauma with your kid that you're helping them process, if you have your own stuff that you're dealing with this, that you take good care of yourself. So doing this storytelling process with your kids while you have your own unresolved stuff around it, you run the risk of projecting your stuff, your part of the story, your own trauma onto them, and muddying the waters and making it way more complicated for your kid than it needs to be. It's really important that you have really good boundaries with yourself on things like this, and with your child too. So if you and your child have experienced something scary together, make it really clear that it's your job as the parent to take good care of their kid, and you're going to help them feel safe and get through this time, and that you have grown-ups in your life who you're going to go to help you feel safe. That it's not your child's job to make you feel better, or to make you feel safe, or to make you feel anything. That you as an adult are going to lean on the adults in your life to help you process. So if you need to get yourself to therapy, if something really scary happened, that's where you need to go. And you need to make it super clear to your kids that you've got this, that you are taking care of yourself, and you have really clear boundaries around what's your processing of the event and what's their processing of the event. You definitely create shared meaning with them, where you are talking about the story together and sharing your thoughts and their thoughts, but you should not be using these storytelling events, or these storytelling opportunities with your kids as an opportunity to heal yourself. Your healing needs to happen somewhere else with grown-ups, not necessarily with your kid, so that you can have a clear mind and provide this kind of safe space for your kids. So that doesn't mean that you can't say things like how you were scared, but only do that in a way that is going to help your kids feel safe. You don't want to put any of your stuff on them, right? That's what the grown-ups in our lives are for. That's what our therapists are for, or our partners. So for me, with my daughter's bicycling accident, it was hugely important that my mom, who was there with me, and that she and I had a chance to process that together, tell the story with each other over, process our feelings and all of that, kind of without my daughter being there, as kind of grown-ups together. So storytelling is this great tool that you can have. And we use storytelling to process all sorts of things. So like my older daughter is my sensitive one. I know I talk about her a lot. She's wonderful, but even getting shots at the doctors is super traumatic for her. And so we do a lot of storytelling before to prepare her for the trauma of the shots, and we do a lot of storytelling after, and as we get further and further from like when it happened, the story changes subtly. Yes, it did hurt a lot, and now it doesn't hurt so much. Now I know that it does hurt right at the beginning, and now the pain is starting to go away. And you kind of help them contextualize and make meaning out of it. And now I know as the pain is going away, I know the medicine is going into my body and making my immune system stronger. All of those things to help them kind of understand and process what happened to them. They are allowed to have all of their feelings, and we're always returning to a sense of safety and purpose with what happened to them. So another way you can help children process difficult things that have happened to them, or stressful things that have happened to them, is through art. Art is this beautiful mode of kind of being in the present moment, being with what's going on for us, and we can use it with our kids. You can search Google for prompts for helping kids deal with things through art. But one of my favorite ones is to have kids draw how they're feeling, or choose a color for how they're feeling, then draw a picture in just that color, draw a picture of what happened in just that color. And then have them draw pick a color that feels really safe to them and that makes them feel warm and loved or connected or grounded and safe, and then draw a picture of where they feel safe or how they feel safe or what kind of safety feels like to them with that color. And that's a nice way of doing it. But even just free expression with art can be a wonderful way to do that, to use art for that purpose. So if you're having trouble getting your kid to talk about something hard that happened and you want them to have an opportunity to process and you want to do some of this storytelling, one, you can write the story down and have them illustrate the story and make a book about it. That can be super helpful. But you can also just use drawing as a way to keep our minds and hands kind of busy as we process. So that kind of meditative moving and kind of that physical kind of being in your body as you're drawing with art can often allow things to come out, and it makes it easier for some folks to talk. So even just, coloring sheets together while you're processing or telling the story can be super helpful. So using art in conjunction with storytelling or on its own as a way to process can be lovely. You can also use play to help children process the things that have happened to them. Children are beautiful, instinctual creatures, and they do this naturally. So if you're looking at their child-led play after something difficult happens or kind of they've had some stressors in their lives, you will likely see themes emerge that are very clear that it's helping them process. So for example, I know that after we go to the doctor and my daughter has to have a shot, that for the next couple days, we are always playing veterinary office where the animals have to go in and get shots. Always. And it's not, I don't even know that my daughter is conscious that she's doing it, but I always make myself available for that type of play because I know what she's doing. I know that she's processing those things. Another play that's common in my house that I know is helping process a daily stressor is playing school. So in the game that we play around school, my daughter's always the mommy and I'm always the baby. And this is my other daughter who likes to play this right now. And she's dropping me off at school and we're going to spend the day apart while she goes to work. And I'm at school. And so often part of this game is as the child, I'm supposed to get sick or get hurt while my mom is gone. And then we kind of play through the process of the teacher notifying my mom that I'm hurt or sick and that I need her. And then the mom rushing and leaving work and kind of rushing to be with her. And so that theme is a common theme. I think if you have kids who are in daycare or who are going to school, I would imagine you've seen something like that. And it's so lovely to know that when they are playing in that way, that they're doing really important emotional processing and meaning making. And you can take a little bit of steps within that play to heighten it, to kind of hold it up to the light a little bit by maybe if you're the child, pretending to be the child in the scenario, using your role to say things like, oh, I'm sick, I'm really sick, and I really want my mommy, and I know she'll always come and get me. Those types of things. Or, and then when you reunify, oh, mommy, I missed you so much, and I knew you'd come and get me, but I was still a little worried that maybe it would take too long, but it didn't, and you're here just in time. Kind of using that play to kind of extend the purpose of what the processing that's happening, to, again, similar with the storytelling, come to this place of resolution, come to this place of connection and to meaning making. What is the meaning that we want? What is the message that we want our child to know? Either via this play or via the story. They are safe, that they are loved, that the parents who they have around them taking care of them are going to help keep them safe. Sometimes bad things happen, but we know that we are always loved. What are those messages you want your child to have, and how can we incorporate them into the play and bring them out and bring them to life in a meaningful way for our kids? So that's play. And then there are some times when our kids, when their nervous systems get really aroused and they need help bringing themselves back into the present moment. And that's what grounding can do for you. And I did a quick Google before doing this, and there's so many great resources on helping children feel grounded. I think we are living and parenting in this wonderful time where I know that social media and kind of all of these blogs and experts sometimes make us confused and sometimes make us feel like we're not doing anything right, or that there's always something new that we're not doing. But man, are there a lot of resources at our fingertips. I think about like I was an intense, sensitive kid growing up, and my parents and my teachers, they didn't have access to hardly any information on how to help me process it and how to help me get out of my head and out of my worries and back into my body, to feel grounded and at home. Like, they had nothing. We're so lucky to be parenting right now. So you can do a quick Google on grounding exercises for children. There's so much, but one of my favorite ones to do with my kids is to help them feel their body. And so sometimes this is when we're in a hug, sometimes they don't want to be touched. And we're just talking about, okay, so you're standing on the floor. What does it feel like to have your toes touching the floor? Okay, what about the middle of your foot touching the floor? Is the arch of your foot touching the floor? Okay, can you press your feet down? So I'm wobbling because I'm doing this with my feet right now. Can you press your feet down and feel your heel really connecting to the earth? And can you feel that feeling all the way through your heels and to the top of your head? That's one of my favorite ones. Another one that kids really like to do is tracing their hand. So you can put your hand on a tabletop, and you don't need paper or pencils to do this, but you put your hand down on a tabletop, and then you have them use their finger to trace their hand. And you can say, this is me. Here I am. My hand's on the table. I'm right here. And this is when kids are really worried about something or really having a hard time, when they're triggered, when they're aroused, and we need to bring them back into balance, into regulation. Another one that I love is a compassionate heart, or hand over the heart. And you have your child feel their hand over their heart space, and you have them imagine sending warm love into their heart, and then from their heart back into their hand. And you kind of imagine, you can have them do it with colors. And then another one is using your senses to ground yourself in the present moment. So looking around and naming 5 things that are the color yellow, looking around and seeing 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch. You can kind of move from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 down in there. That's a grounding exercise that's super popular apparently on Pinterest, so you can find that really easily. But all of those things can help children feel grounded. And sometimes when a child is really afraid of something, we need to get them grounded before we start telling the story. So that might be the case for you. If something's really scary has happened, you need to get them grounded, and then you can start telling them the story. Wow, you had that dream again about when we were walking and you were hit by the bicycle. Right, we were on a walk with Grandma and Grandpa. We were having fun, eating a snack as we were, walking to this new park, and you were excited to be able to climb. And then out of nowhere, this bicycle came, and you didn't know where to stand and or where to go. And then all of a sudden, you were being run over, and you were on the ground, and your leg got hurt. And that's kind of fast forwarding. We don't have to go into all of the details. And then Mommy scooped you up, and Mommy threw the bike off of you and scooped you up and brought you over to the side. And, Grandma was very worried, and there were some people walking by, and, and then I told you that we were going to be safe, and then we were going to get help, and we called Daddy, and he came right away and picked us up, and we took you to the hospital, and there they helped you. They gave you medicine so it didn't hurt. You kind of walk all the way through those things. And that was months ago, and your cast has been off now for a long time, but it's still scary sometimes to think about it. And I'm here with you now, and you're safe. And you can walk through all the things that you've done to keep them safe, but being there in that present moment with their feelings, and helping them tell that story. I still think storytelling is the most powerful thing you can do here, whether it's telling the story through play or telling it through art or just telling it out loud as often as you need to. And if there is something that you where you try to do some storytelling and your kid doesn't want to hear it and starts to avoid it, that lets you know that maybe that is something that we need to be telling the story of a little bit more frequently. And it is natural to want to avoid something that was stressful or something that was scary and to want to think about it. But our brains are really wise, and they want us to process and heal from it. And telling the story is one way that can happen. Okay. So I think that was all that I wanted to share with you today. Thanks for sticking with me. If there's any questions, of course you should let me know. And I know I talked about some super intense, scary things that have happened to me and my daughter, but like this stuff, you can apply this to the normal everyday stressors that you have with your kids. Like getting yelled at by a favorite teacher, super stressful. That deserves a processing session and stories. Other like seeing somebody get arrested right in front of you. Super scary. Let's see. Leah says, a friend of mine has her child in therapy and he plays with Legos while talking to the therapist. So that goes with your idea of having their hands moving while they process verbally. Yes, absolutely. Legos are great for that. Sand trays are also really wonderful for that. Or Play-Doh, like getting your hands moving and feeling and connecting those things. So clay, Play-Doh, and sand are also really good for those moments where we want to keep the kids' hands busy so that their mind can be free. Yeah, great.